Good morning and welcome to episode number 139 of Ascension with A Course in Miracles. And today is Wednesday, February 28th, 2024. And I've got to tell you, the shift, the energies, what is happening in the world is absolutely remarkable to witness. It's really amazing watching exactly what the Course in Miracles has been explaining is the difference, the distinction between ego and God's way of thinking. And as I sit where I am today at this level of awareness, and I'm on the spiral of ascension like everybody else, and I am where I am, I know where I've been, and I can look back and go, yep, those are the steps, but I don't know what's happening. I don't know what the rest of this journey is going to entail. So it is always such an incredible, uh, amazing experience to move down this path and be able to see the things that I have learned, how they have impacted not only my life, but I am observing them, how they're impacting other people's lives. One of the wonderful things, oh, so good to see you here, sweetie. Welcome. But one of the amazing things about having awareness, having self-awareness, and having done the work, and then having the privilege of being a coach and a teacher of this work to others for so long, many years, since 2007, gives you perspective, has allowed me to see that everybody is pretty much exactly the same. All of us, and these charts, I do visuals to try and give people opportunities to see what I'm talking about on these charts. But all of us are born we come from non-physical essence. We come from the truth of who we are. We make a decision before we are born. Now, that is a very difficult concept for most people until they see that that is the only way out of the insanity. While we think, I could not have chosen this, then the ego gives us permission not to choose to change our minds. And as long as we are operating in the I never would have chosen this journey for myself. I never would have chosen these parents. We can't give ourselves credit for the adventurers that we are, the courageous adventurers that chose to leave the comfort, the peace, the joy, the everlasting bliss of non-physicality. And we just went on an adventure, no different than we pack up our suitcases and go on an adventure. And sometimes you leave your home and you don't know what you're going to find in the hotel. You don't know what you're going to find in the country that you might go visit. You don't know what you're going to find on the road as you're traveling to your destination. You don't know what you're going to encounter at the airport as you're preparing to board for your airplane. There's all kinds of things that are not planned for that happen on our journey. So the more that we get comfortable that choosing to incarnate on planet Earth is really no different than going on a vacation. You don't know what you're going to encounter. You have general ideas, but you don't know exactly what you're going to encounter. So when you, as I have had, the ability to gain perspective about what this journey is about, everybody is exactly the same. We all chose from non-physical to have a physical experience prior to incarnation, or you can call it separation, prior to having the experience that we're other than how God created us. We are in pure bliss. And we know we're going to return to that because we know that that is the truth of who we are. From that non-physical place, we choose to have a physical experience. And everybody goes through the exact same process. We all pick up where we left off because we're expanding consciousness. Meaning, if in your last incarnation you left at this level of frequency, you're going to be born into that level of frequency. And then you will do whatever you need to do to continue the process of ascension. Typically, the way it has been is that we ascend, the ascension happens at the completion of the incarnation. So you die, you transition. On the other side, you have what is known as your review, which is not somebody deciding if you did things right or wrong, not at all, but it's you looking at your life and going, okay, so for me to get this lesson, I'm going to have to come in this opportunity. So I was a bully here. I'm going to come in as a victim and learn what it's like to experience being done to me, what I've done to others, or vice versa. That was the way of it. Incarnation after incarnation after incarnation, we have had a very slow ascension process. Now, and these are the kinds of things that you have to learn on your own, because there is no way for me to pinpoint where I learned these things. I just have learned them. And once you learn them and they resonate with you, then you know them to be your truth. So you don't have to defend them to anybody else. You know it's true. But we are going through a space or a place within the cosmos where there are shifts and changes that are happening, planetary speaking, and that it's affecting us on the planet level. So, in other words, the galaxies are going through shifts, the planet is going through shifts, and humans, plants, everything on this planet is going through massive changes. What is happening is that we are all ascending together. Before, everybody was on their own journey. Now it's a collective. Because we're moving from a me experience, which is what the third dimension is about. We chose to come here, and we are feeling like we're all alone, and we go on this journey, and I got to take care of me. I do it all by myself. That's third grade of ascension. We're moving to the fifth grade of ascension. To get to the fifth grade, where is we operate as a collective. We care about one another. To get to that grade, we got to go through fourth grade. Fourth grade is the fourth level, the 4D. You can call it whatever you want to call it. I tend to refer to it as a bridge. It's a bridge that we are crossing to take us from the third dimension of me selfishness to the fifth dimension of collective we in service to one another. But we can't just wake up and one day and be in the fifth dimension where and I'm going to give you just a general list of what we can expect in the fifth dimension. And so I can show you why we can't just land here with this level of consciousness. To be here, to move into that level of existence, collaboration, cooperation with one another, we first need to understand that that we're all connected. That has to become clear. So how can we all be connected? Well, we all connected because we're made of the same thing. Well, what is that thing? Non-physical energy. Well, how can that be? Because that's what we are. So there's a lot of dots that need to be connected. Your energy, I'm energy, everything is energy. It's the exact same energy. But because in the third dimension, we don't come here to know our oneness. We come here to experience separation. Our minds, through schooling, through religion, through all kinds of things, has been indoctrinated into believing your body is separate than my body. I'm separate than that tree. I'm separate than that house. Well, we have the experience of separation, so we can have the third dimensional incarnation. But what we are is energy, because we're not talking about that energy that is between me and the tree or me and you. It's the same energy, but that energy hasn't materialized. It hasn't become matter. It has stayed non-physical. You and I chose to become matter. We chose to have a physical body that is expressing itself as a separate being. But if we were to break it down, it's all energy. So a simple analogy that I'm going to share with you. Think about, water. If you consider water, it shows up as gas, it shows up as ice, it shows up as liquid, so it's the same thing. But if you travel, to, let's say, the North Pole or the northern areas. I went to Iceland a couple years back, and I could see that on the water, when I went to the ocean, there were icebergs. There were these big chunks of ice. And I could say, oh, those are all separate chunks of ice. And actually, we named them. The icebergs have different names. However, all that ice came from the same water. And all of that ice came, or that got built and got created. Not only does it come from the same water, it's all made of the exact same molecules, H2O. It's the exact same formula, all of them made of the exact same thing. But we see them as separate icebergs, whether it rained down or snowed down and accumulated that way, or whether it's building up from below the surface of the ocean. It doesn't matter. All of it is H2O. All of us, everything, plants, people, animals, ground, dirt, air, all of it is made of energy. But we have solidified, like the icebergs have solidified individually. We have solidified individually, taken on individual appearances and in individual body shapes and whatever. And we pick up, just like the iceberg picks up, the iceberg in the North Pole is going to have minerals and things that you find up there. The icebergs in the South Pole have minerals that you find down there. So you will have beliefs that are based on your family's upbringing. I'll have beliefs that are based on my family upbringing. So they might be different, like the minerals in the different icebergs are different. But given enough time, those minerals are going to circulate because it's all one. It's all oneness moving about. Eventually, you and I are going to understand that we have the same beliefs, slightly different based on the upbringing, but basically the same thing. And we're discovering that the more that we speak, the more that we share, the more that we talk about what we believe. So to be able to move into that fifth dimension, we got to get comfortable that we have more in common than not. We have to be willing to explore where do we really come from and move out of the childish ideas of the stork brought us in, or this idea that we were just born from our parents and that's where it starts. We came from the hospital and that's it. We really have to expand our awareness. Means we have to be willing to mature and acknowledge that we don't know what we don't know. So lots of things have to happen before humanity can get to that fifth dimension. So individually, as we are being called to move through this shift, those who are ready are beginning the process of questioning what they know so that they can begin to expand their awareness. See, the ego says, I know this, and it creates a circle. Better description is a box, and we live inside that box and we defend that box. And by gosh, things have to be a certain way. And it requires an incredible amount of courage. As much courage as it took to incarnate, it requires to wake up in an incarnation. Because it requires knowing there has to be another way. I cannot possibly know everything. So this journey of crossing that bridge requires that we understand that there is so much more that we are not aware of, and we have to be willing to be curious. We have to open ourselves up to hear what other people have to say. So humanity, I'm so encouraged because I'm observing through lots of things that have been happening here on planet Earth in the last, couple of decades. People are questioning things. People are questioning religion. That's been going on for a bit longer. People are questioning, their political affiliations. That's nice. I switched parties too. Actually, I've moved to where I don't belong to any party, but I don't vote for the same party I used to because I began to question things. People are questioning the medical establishment. What happened here in 2020 began to create an incredible opportunity for people to question the medical establishment. Until we question everything, question the entire food production, until we are willing to question what is it that we are going to the grocery store to get in a package. Do we know where that comes from? Until we're willing to really get to where does everything come from, to the root of everything, we haven't questioned far enough to come to discover that we're all one. And what we are all one, what that entitles us to is the recognition that we're all made of the same thing that the creative source is made of. And one of the things that I love about the Course in Miracles, as we continue on this journey, I love the teachings of the Course, is that it tells us that God itself wants us to know that we're no different than it. There's only one difference that is mentioned in the Course, the only difference, and that is that God created us. We did not create God. So if you can get comfortable with the fact that you were created by God, now the question is, well, then what is it that is the same with God that I have that God has? If that's the only difference, that it created me, then let me stop trying to think that I'm God and created everything. Let me acknowledge that I am like God and find out what that means. The Course takes us on a journey to discover. God is pure creativity, adventurous, very adventurous, shows up in all these different ways that we can show up in. God is one with everything, meaning we're all connected. So we are that energy. So what allows being one with everything? What are some of the attributes of that? Well, love is going to be automatic there, because you know you're one with everything. You're going to love everything. In the 3D world, we only love special people. We love our children, our parents, all pretty much all of that is conditional, but we do, because we get upset if they don't do things our way, or if they don't treat us a certain way that we expect them to be treated. Then our love, then we withhold love and we punish them. We won't talk to them. We won't call them. We won't whatever. We let everybody know how mean they were, how whatever we didn't like about them, conditional. So it's just blocking love. Those are the immature games that are played in the third dimensional playground. The fifth dimensional playground, you cannot move to the fifth dimension with judgmental consciousness, with consciousness of separation, with consciousness of expectation, because in the fifth dimensional consciousness, the fifth grade, if you want to call it that, we have matured so that we understand that we are all connected. We don't have to play conditional games. We don't have to manipulate one another, because we're one. Number one, we recognize that all of our minds are joined. We know what everybody's thinking, because you understand that the ego operates in a very predictable way, just as God operates in a very predictable way. When you love unconditionally, you're okay speaking your mind. So communication is easy. Then comes collaboration. You communicate, you collaborate. Why? Because you're here to co-create a new earth, to do things in service to the we. You cannot do that in a third dimension when everybody's protecting themselves, because everybody comes to the meeting sharing information, but holding back a little bit because it's conditional, holding back a little bit. What am I going to get out of this? We what's that saying? Hold your cards close to the vest, whatever. Don't let them see you sweat. Don't. So it's all about manipulating outcomes, because it's selfish. Fifth dimension, there is no selfishness. There is going to be no greed. Guess what are some of the things that are going to go away? There will be no banking system, because you know that you're the creator. So whatever you need, you will be able to decide, I want it here, and it's going to manifest. We don't have to have things that are competing with one another. And while the mind can't wrap itself around the idea, what? We're not going to have money. Well, we still have 3D consciousness to work through, because in a world where we all are collaborating, it's going to be, you're manifesting. See, that's one of the things that is so impossible to understand, that when we move into instant manifestation, you create what you want right there and then. You don't have to work to retire. If you want to experience being retired, you just say, well, I want to be retired. And then you live the retired life. If you want to experience what it's like to build a building, you're going to build a building, but you don't need to go to the bank to get a loan to build a building. You're going to build a building because you're going to say, well, these are the things that I need, and they're going to show up for you because you're one with all of it. It shows up for you when you want it. We have been conditioned to believe that it doesn't, that we have to work for it. So on this bridge, we are moving little by little through the fourth dimension, and the banking system is going to change from way in the beginning of the third dimension where there was no money, and then we traded things, and then we created banking, and then banking became corrupt, and then it became a form of enslavement. We are going to clean that up first. So first, we're going to have an experience of transparency, of beginning to make sure that everybody sees everything, that it becomes totally and completely uncorruptible. So we're going to go through a process of using money in a transparent way, getting rid of all the rules, laws, regulations that have been created by the ego and greed and selfishness and enslavement and control. We're going to shift. We're going to begin to see, those of us who are in this incarnation, we're going to have, in this lifetime for sure, we're going to see major changes, and in a couple more generations until there is none of that in the fifth dimension. Listen, in the fifth dimension, our bodies are going to be made of light. You don't need money when your body's made of light. Guess something else you're not going to need. You're not going to need a doctor because you don't go outside of yourself to get healed. You know you are one with God and have the same powers that God has. And God is a creator. So you're going to be creating what you desire. So it's such a different ballgame, but we cannot have that kind of a world yet because too many of us are still trying to make ends meet. And while we have that lack mentality, I don't have enough, you can't operate with the, well, if I am the creator of all of it, then let me create all that I want. Those frequencies of lack and expansion are too far apart, where we're still looking outside of ourselves to be taken care of. Well, we still need the government, well, we still need the media to inform us, well, we still need the medical establishment to cure us. We're still believing that we don't have the power that God says we have. So the mind has to continue to be trained into the acceptance of the power that we do have. So back to my comments from the very beginning. I love watching what's happening in the world because with my 16, 17 years of experience working with so many different people over the years, I see there is a pattern. I can tell you what somebody is experiencing based on what they tell me they believe in, because their thoughts create their reality. So it's very simple. So it's really exciting to see more and more people moving to a level of getting upset, getting angry with the establishment and saying, I don't want any more of this. Because when we begin to say, I don't want any more of what's happening out here, then we are more willing to come in here and say, well, what can I do to change it? And when more people move into the place of what can I do to change it, then we are beginning to access the power that we have to be able to co-create something different. But while we are complacent and following along with what the establishment says and we follow the rules, then we're not uncomfortable enough. We're okay with, oh, some days it works, some days it doesn't. But when we get on that bridge is because we've decided enough is enough. I'm coming inside. I want to know what my powers are. I'm not blaming anybody on the outside. I'm not going to focus on changing anybody on the outside. Excuse me a second. I am willing to take 100% responsibility for my power. So in this lesson, chapter 30, the new beginning is what is possible for those who have made that decision to, I'm not looking outside of myself anymore. We've already covered about the idols. We gave power outside of ourselves. Course in Miracles tells us that we only have one problem, and it's the authority problem. So when we come in and find the authority within us, and where is it? It has to be in us. We're made of the same energy. So in you is the authority, in me is the authority. When everybody that wakes up knows that in them is the authority, and that authority connects us. It's about love. It's about collaboration. It's about cooperation. You want for others exactly what you want for yourself. Then we are able to operate in transparency. We're able to operate in a much higher dimension of collaboration. We can't do that in the 3D world because there's still too much giving power outside of ourselves and not acknowledging that we're connected. So we got work to do. And last week, when we were looking at the readings in paragraph number 8, inside of the only purpose that we have, here's this hand or this line that just jumped out, and it just last week it just brought me to tears, knowing that this is the truth of who we are. So I'm going to read this one sentence from last week, and then we're going to come in and start looking at paragraph number 9 for this week. But in paragraph number 8, it says that within your hand is everything you need to walk with perfect confidence away from fear forever, from the 3D world, and to go straight on and quickly reach the gate of heaven itself. Within us, within our hand, is the ability to shift from fear to love, from ego to God, to shift and to lift from a low frequency of all about me, selfishness, greed, fear, anger, retaliation, war, attack, victims, and bullies. Within us is the ability to shift from here and lift into the high frequencies of love, collaboration, cooperation. But that journey on that bridge to make that shift, it requires a willingness that has to be ongoing. I know for me, it's been over 20 years. I started this 2002, so 22 years when I made the decision that there had to be another way. And I began to question what I had been taught. I began to read. I began to expand my mind. I began to go to workshops. And I followed all kinds of teachers, and they took me to where they could take me. Everybody teaches to where they're at. I cannot take anybody beyond where I'm at, but I can take people to where I am, and I can show you the steps necessary to get there. I follow the teachings of Jesus because Jesus got to where I want to get to, which is to know that he's not a body and to be in a place that he knows he's one with everything, so he can communicate with all of us, even though he died 2,000 years ago. He's not bound by the human laws of birth and death. He is under no laws but God's, and knows that he can communicate with anybody who wants to communicate with him. So I communicate with him through reading teachings where he communicated with other people. But Jesus is absolutely in a state of total, complete freedom. And from that non-physical perspective, do you think he needs money? No, he doesn't need money. He doesn't need to go to the doctor. He's non-physical consciousness, simply loving all the beings that are wanting to play the games of limitation. And there are 8 billion of us on the planet right now playing the game at various different levels of consciousness, and it's okay. So to get to an ascended planet where it is a 5th dimensional planet versus this one that has been a 3rd dimensional planet, we need all of humanity to be at that level of consciousness. That means that we got to wake up people to remember the truth of who they are. And right now, because of exactly what needed to happen to create that big shift, humanity is being exposed to so many things that people are going, well, that doesn't make sense. Wait a second, that's not fair. Wait a second, that's not right. We're beginning to move out of selfish greediness into, wait a second, that I don't want that for the children. I don't want that for women. I don't want that for men. We're beginning to be more expansive in our desire to experience goodness, to experience happiness, to experience abundance, to experience well-being. But the people who begin to talk about a level of freedom that is not part of the 3D world where it is about limitation. Those who are moving beyond limitation into collaboration, well, they're called crazy. They are the ones who a couple hundred years ago were burnt at the stake because they were sharing information. They were too fringe in the 3D world. Now, there are so many of us. There are billions upon billions upon billions that are really, really fringe. We are on the leading edge, moving away from the third dimension. To be this far out in the expansion of consciousness means that you no longer fear. You're not worried about the old stuff from the 3D world because you know it has no power over you. It's like, why would you be afraid of a third grade teacher when you know you're moving to fourth grade? So what if she doesn't like you? So what if she tells the third graders that, they've got rules and they got to go take their, they got to do things at a specific time and they got to turn their homework in at a specific time? That doesn't bother you when you're in fourth grade. You're in fourth grade. You're not concerned about what's happening in third grade. That's exactly what is happening to those on the leading edge. We're on the leading edge, taking in the truths that are being revealed to us, whether we're studying with others or we're going inside and getting that from our own inner teacher. We are on the leading edge and we're not concerned about the rules of the 3D world because we're under no laws but God's. We have freed ourselves to begin to receive the truth that we are now co-creating with one another, because there's enough of us here co-creating that new earth. So in our hand is everything that we need to walk with perfect confidence out of the old and into the new, with perfect confidence to not follow those nonsensical rules. So, for example, for me, when there was all this hubbub about the vaccines, I didn't want one. Internally, I knew it was not for me. I was not in fear of not taking it. A lot of people were. So they had to go down the path that they had to go down the path. But when you are confident and you don't need, I didn't need to go tell people don't do it. I shared the information that I had for anybody who was curious enough to see it. But if people were not curious because they were listening to the consciousness that said, I have to do it, that's okay, because we are one. And I love everybody no matter where they're at. And this is one of the beautiful things that helps us see the distinction from those who are moving to the fifth dimension is you trust that everybody's exactly what they're supposed to be. There is no need to change anybody's mind. There's simply a being, an example of the change of mind that has happened within you. And then those who are interested in that follow, those who are not, don't. Exactly as Jesus has taught us. He had his human incarnation, has brought us teachings like A Course in Miracles and so many other teachings. And you find it and you follow it and you put it into practice. If it speaks to you, if it doesn't speak to you, you don't do it. And Jesus is not worried. He's not judging anybody that is not following in those footsteps, because when you know that all are creators of their own reality, you respect the power of creation that each person has. But to be able to be at that space of acceptance of everybody's journey, you can't be in judgment. So to be in acceptance of who they are, which is a high frequency, you got to give up the judgment that happens in low frequency, where I think I know better than you do. And this my way or the highway, that's very low frequency. You can't cross the bridge. You can't move into accepting everybody and loving them where they are when you have no fear that they're going to do something wrong. Because when you accept that everybody is powerful, then whatever consequences they experience are part of their journey. It's part of their adventure. So back to what I said in the beginning, we all chose our parents. And when we can look back and go, oh, I had the father that did what he did to me, and that was so important because it helped me at the age of 10 begin to question this whole story of being, well, I didn't begin to question at 10. At 10, I began to solidify myself in my egoic story that I had been abandoned. And I began to create all the lies in my head that I needed to go on for the next 30, 40 years to create the life that would be so ridiculous that it would pop me out of the illusion. So I picked the perfect parents. They gave me the exact lessons that I needed. But you can't accept the perfection of what has happened to you until you go through the journey of doing some of the work to realize that you're not a victim. Never have been at all. Did your body experience challenges in situations? Yes, nobody denies that. That's what this adventure is about. We're going to go on an adventure, and some things are going to be challenging. Did your mind get programmed with beliefs that are not true? Yes. We're cleaning up our mind. We're changing our belief system. Did you hold on to emotional pain that you couldn't process at a young child because there was nobody teaching you? Yes. So we release the emotions from the body. We change our mind about things, and then the body heals. Now, mind, body, spirit, you are operating in alignment with the truth of who you are. Now, the past doesn't matter. It happened. It's done. It's over with. You are moving to live in the now moment so that you can be present to the directions that you're receiving that are taking you into the co-creation of the new. We can't bring any old stuff into the new. It's just not going to work. The frequencies are too low in the old, and they're selfish and greedy and fear-based. In the new, they're about collaboration and co-creation. And in the fifth dimension, we don't have to worry about homelessness. We're not going to be concerned with anybody being not having enough to eat. That's not part of that dimension. So nobody's going to be worried about safety. You don't have to worry about having enough for retirement. That's not part of the fifth dimension. So if you're still worried about how to make ends meet, if those fears are still there, then they haven't been released. They're still active. Nothing wrong with that. This is why this journey is a journey of major honesty, because we have to acknowledge what we are believing, because what we're believing creates our reality. And if you say, well, I want to be part of the fifth dimension of that kind of a world, and you're still holding on to the crumbs that you get from the third dimension, you're not ready for that level of freedom, because the mind is still entrapped, imprisoned in a very limited way of thinking. But in our hands, as we saw last week, within our hands is everything that we need to walk with perfect confidence out of the old and into the new. We just have to take it one step at a time and be committed with confidence today and confidence today and confidence today until we cross that bridge. So this week, here we go to an ancient hate is passing from the world. The 3D world is so filled with hate and anger for what was done to us. That whole victim blaming somebody else and those bullies that took advantage of innocence. That hate is passing. The more that we move out of that, the blame game, the more that old stuff is just going to dissipate. It's not going to be necessary. And with it goes all hatred and all fear. Because when we're no longer operating as victims and bullies, we're operating as collaborators, co-creators. Fear goes away. You're not going to fear one that you're one with, and you can read their mind, because we will be feeling energetically what everybody is thinking and feeling. We're going to be vibing with one another. And if there is a discord in the vibration, you're going to feel it. And love will say, hey, I can sense something's off. You want to talk about it? And the one that can open the door is not going to take it personal. If they say, well, I'm a little upset with you because you didn't call me back yesterday, you will say, oh, I'm so sorry. I forgot that I had promised I would call you. Please forgive me for not calling you. Things will get corrected on the spot. They're not going to accumulate, creating density, holding grudges, holding anger. We are going to be very well practiced at saying what we need to say. It's going on the bridge. We're having opportunities to speak up, to practice. Most of the speaking up that we're doing is with those that hurt us. We're either speaking it to them while they're alive. Some of us do it while they're dead. I did my healing work with my dad and my mom. They were already gone. So I had to say a lot of things to them. Sometimes I would write it out. Sometimes I would yell it out. They were not there in front of me to say it, but I said it because when we're operating in me and it's I'm protecting me, we don't say things because that's how we manipulate others. I'm going to withhold the truth from you because I'm going to hurt you because you're not going to know what I'm thinking. You're not going to know what I'm doing. Or as a bully, we blurt it out and we tell them, you're horrible, you're mean, you're terrible, whatever, because that's the way the ego operates. But when we move to the fifth dimension, we're going to be feeling each other. We're resensitizing ourselves. That's why we got to clean up our emotional body so that we can feel again properly. We need to clean up our thinking so that we stop saying things that perpetuate the hurt and the pain. So the mind has to get cleaned up. The emotions have to be released so the body can heal and be free. Illnesses are not going to be part of the fifth dimension because illnesses are the result of the densification of emotional baggage and incorrect thinking. So we've got to address all of those things. And of course, in the third dimension, where we relied and we gave power to others to manage our food and manage our air and our water, and it's been polluted because it's a 3D world of selfishness and greed. And if they can make more money and produce an inferior product, and we've been consuming those things, well, that's affecting our bodies as well. So there are so many layers to the greed and the selfishness of the ego that when you can step back and when you can begin to see what's happening, you're going, oh my gosh, it makes perfect sense that the 3D world is in the mess that it's in, because so many people have been operating selfishly in greed, only taking care of themselves. And of course, when we operate in a world where money has been given so much power because we believe in lack, we believe there's not enough, so I better get as much as I can. Inevitably, there's going to be a haves and have-nots. We're seeing it. And if you read history, you can go back and see every civilization that collapsed for the exact same reasons. So now the old is collapsing because so many of us want something new, but it's not going to collapse and we're all going to die and like Atlantis and, we got to start over. We are waking up while we are here and looking at that and going, nope, I'm not going to play that game anymore. And we are coming together because in our hands is the ability to, with confidence, with certainty, create something new, not buy into the old. But you've got to not be afraid of those that appear to have power. You've got to know that the power is in you. And when you have that power in you, you're not going to be swayed to play the games of control. You're not going to do that. So you're going to be an outlier. You're going to be on the fringes. You're going to be on the leading edge of creating something new. So all of that hatred, all of that fear is going to go away. Look back no longer, for what lies ahead is all you ever wanted in your heart. When we begin to think about the fifth dimension and we begin to realize, wait a second, in the fifth dimension, we don't need to have anybody controlling us. We don't need a government that has power over us. You realize the governance is because we care about one another. So when you look forward and you go, my gosh, that's possible, you then begin to entertain, how does that get created? You begin to have ideas of how to bring those things into manifestation. That's why at some point, but here's the trick. You cannot co-create what you prefer to have as your lived experience while you think the third dimensional is your reality. You cannot be that far apart in frequency and make both of them true at the same time. You must acknowledge that this is a temporary expression of the use of misuse of our power, because we didn't know what we didn't know. Now that we know that we're creators, we've got to spend just as much time immersed in knowing the truth, sitting in contemplation of what that's going to be like. That's why this is slow going, because we point at this as being the reality that we believe this is it. So we've got to get really clear. This is a journey. Have we dropped the baggage yet? If we haven't dropped the baggage, you can't go into that journey with baggage. It's just not possible. So in our heart is everything we've ever wanted. As little children, we knew the kind of a life that we wanted. We knew the kind of parents we wanted, the kinds of experiences we wanted. We've got to become like little children and allow ourselves to imagine the beauty, the magnificence of that kind of a new world. So we've got to, as it says in sentence 4, give up the world, the 3D world, give it up. Stop looking for your well-being outside of you. Stop looking for your happiness outside of you. Stop looking for your safety, your security outside of you. Begin to create a relationship within. And yes, you're going to be in the world, the 3D world, but you don't have to be of it. You can begin to not follow nonsensical rules. You can begin to connect with those who are on the edge and are co-creating something new. You can begin to not do what the systems expect you to do. As a grandmother here in Colorado, I'm here because my daughter doesn't want to send her children to the 3D establishment that I sent my children to. So I'm here to help with the homeschooling. We're going to do things differently. She's not getting her children vaccinated. No, zero vaccines, because she understands the greed that has gone into that world. So she doesn't take her kids to traditional doctors. She has found holistic, she's going down that route. But it starts in the home with feeding them things that will make them healthy. That while she believes that health comes from the outside, she's providing the foods, the organics, the things, sourcing meat from places that are lovingly taking care of the meat production, the whatever. That is possible in this world today because so many are co-creating that as their reality. It's in the 3D world, but not of it anymore. And then they will continue to move beyond that. But we have to make those decisions, as it says in here, give up the world. But while we go outside of ourselves, we're still too much in the world. We're still too much in the low frequencies. We're still operating in fear. And that's okay. Nothing wrong with that because you're a powerful creator. So if anybody is suffering, it's because they are choosing that frequency. And we have to see them as a powerful creator. Otherwise, we are not acknowledging that everybody is as God created them. And if we decide, oh, that one, they don't have the power to break free from the chains, then we're judging that they're weak. We're judging that they're incapable. And to be able to move into the higher dimensions, we cannot judge. We cannot know what anything is for. We have got to literally take what we are learning from a teaching like A Course in Miracles and don't just pay lip service. You can't just say these beautiful truths and then not live them. So we got to give up the old world. We got to give up the ego's thinking, but not to sacrifice. You never wanted it. These two sentences are so powerful. We're not giving it up, saying, okay, the 3D world's going to hell in a handbasket. Oh my God, what a sacrifice is happening here. We cannot see it that way. There is no way to ascend while you think that somebody is a victim. It's impossible to acknowledge the power within us if we feel sorry for people. These teachings are very challenging to people who are operating in those mentalities, victim or bully mentality. It's very challenging. That's why we don't have these conversations all over the place on mainstream media, because the mainstream media promotes the victim and bully mentality, somebody to blame, somebody to judge, somebody has to be right. So we got to pull away from those things and begin to little by little realize, okay, there's no sacrifice here. Every soul chose to incarnate and have the experiences that they're having because this is a grand adventure. So we've got to realize that to enter into suffering was a choice decided by one who is one with God. We don't want to suffer because what we're made of is love, but suffering is the consequence of going through the temporary forgetting that we are as God created us. That there's a part within us that does not want to suffer, but there's a part within us that chooses to suffer. We've got to see those two clearly. The one that chooses to suffer is because it's choosing separation. It is choosing the adventure of what would it be like to think that I am separate from God. It's, the Course calls that a tiny mad idea, a crazy thought. So that crazy thought that we had has given creation to the world that we are experiencing. It has made this world of suffering. So we have to acknowledge that we contributed to that. But there's a part of us, the soul, the spirit in us says, you know what? There's another way. How about if we create a world of physicality where we appear to be different, but we create it with love? That is in us also, but it's been blocked by the distraction of having to do it in separation. Now we're coming to the place that we're saying, okay, we're going to have separate bodies, but we, knowing that we are one, are going to do this with love. That world of love cannot have people coming over with greed and with victims and with bullies. It's not going to work. So we've got to get really clear about what is it that we want and connect with it within us. We knew what we wanted as little children. So we've got to get playful and joyful again, because when we connect with that childlike energy, we're activating the energy of wonder within us. As adults, well, we think we know it all, and it is what it is, and we're very rigid. We can't be rigid in a world of creativity. So we've got to get in alignment with that inner child that begins to go, I wonder what it's like. This is an invitation that I am going to give everybody watching this. Spend some time imagining what a world without all of the trappings of the 3D world would look like. What would a world without nobody being in charge, everybody being in equal collaboration, having different roles? What would that world look like? What would a world look like without any external medicine? Everything is natural. By external medicine, I mean establishment, a system of external pills and whatever. What would that world look like? What would the world look like if there was no money? What would the world look like if there was no education system that causes us to dumb down our minds? What would that look like? We've got to give permission to our inner child's imagination to begin to get activated, because it atrophied when we began to think we knew things and they were right and we know what's best for everybody. And by gosh, we become parents and we tell our children this is the way that it is. And then we become grandparents and we pass it down. I know all the things that my grandmother, that I adored, taught me about religion that, oh my God, messed me up. All these fears that I had about God. She did the best that she could because she thought she knew what she needed to teach me. Now, as a wise grandmother with my own grandchildren, I know I don't know anything. They're here to teach me. I sit with my little grandson. It's like, well, what do we want to play? Instead of me telling him how these things fit together, how the Legos should be put together based on my memories of the, what it should, the shapes it should take. I'm like, well, what do you want to create? Oh, you want to put this one in? And I can feel that part in me that says, oh, but you don't put the green and the blue together. And I'm going, ego, I'm not listening to you. Writer, you want to put this one here? And okay. And if it topples over, it topples over. I don't need to stop him from making mistakes because maybe they're not mistakes. Maybe that's just a new way. Maybe in his mind, if he builds a leaning tower of, pizza, Lego pizza, it's going to stand. But I couldn't see it standing. I couldn't see it staying because I didn't trust it and believe it. But if he trusted and believe it, it will be, and it's going to defy all egoic laws. Anyways, this is so beautiful. So sentence 7 says, what happiness have you sought here that did not bring you pain. In the physical 3D world, we've been looking for love in all the wrong places. Every time that we look for something to make us happy, we get the boyfriend or the girlfriend, and then they break up with us, and that happiness turns into unhappiness. We get married, and then there's a divorce, that happiness turns into unhappiness. We are with the person that we love, and then they die, that happiness turns into unhappiness. We get the perfect job and we get fired, or the company goes under, that happiness turns into unhappiness. Here in the 3D world, nothing is sustainable because it is made of untruths. What moment of content has not been bought at fearful price in coins of suffering? How many times didn't we have to pay to be entertained? Look at how much we spend to go on vacation so we can have some peace. All the coins that we have had to suffer to earn so that we can go on a vacation to get some peace, and then you end up catching a cold and you bring it home after, the vacation's over. Nothing in the 3D world is sustainable, is joyful, is worth repeating. Now that you can see that there is a whole nother way, but you have to make the decision to extend your hand to one that has the information to help you, because it's very difficult to move past our ego by ourselves. It can be done, but it takes a lot of work. That's why so many of us come into community to assist one another, because one sees the way out, we hold the door open for others who are willing to cross. And most, many come to the door, but they don't cross it. That's okay. So joy has no cost. You should not have to pay for well-being. You should not have to pay for peace. You should not have to pay for happiness. It is your sacred right. And what you pay for is not happiness. We've been paying for being entertained, being distracted from our suffering. That's what we've been paying for. Something that appears to be a high, because we're all addicted to untruth. Now we're learning that we don't have to do that, but we got to come inside and learn to be happy with a connection with ourselves. Our happiness cannot be with anything external. If it's the furniture that makes you happy, or the jewelry that makes you happy, or the money that makes you happy, or the job that makes you happy, or being listened to that makes you happy, that is not going to let you into the fifth dimension. You got to drop that. You got to let that go. You got to put that baggage down. And he goes on to say, be speeded on your way by honesty. Here again, I cannot stress enough. I harp on this with my students. We have to be honest. We've got to say, I'm judging, I'm in fear, I'm in lack, I'm in worry. Because if you don't admit that those things are active, you're deluding yourself into thinking you can get over them. You got to admit it and face them and say, why is this thought still here? Why am I still needing to be fearful? Why am I still needing to control things? Because you haven't chosen to abide in the truth that is true always and deal with the consequences. You know what? I am not going to control anymore. I am going to let things take their toll. Everybody can make their own choices and have their own consequences, because everybody's a creator of their own reality. And I'm going to feel joy about that. Then you will have joy that you didn't have to pay for. Joy that doesn't require somebody to do something for you to be in joy or in peace or in happiness. So, these things, they fit so perfectly, but you got to be willing to be logical. And to be logical, you must be honest. So let me read this again. Be speeded up on your way by honesty, and let not your experiences here deceive in retrospect. Don't think that because you knew what you knew a year ago that it's going to happen the same way. Stop using your past experiences as if that's going to be what's going to work for anybody, because they're past. They're done. We've got to let go of the past. We've got to come into the I don't know what anything is for, and move into the place of, you know what, I'm going to be at peace and I'm going to be in joy no matter what happens. Everybody's consequences are their opportunities for liberation. I'm not going to take that from anybody. I'm going to let everybody have their experience. And granted, when we're talking about children, as parents, as grandparents, we're here to guide them because we want to get them to adulthood, as safe as possible. And I'm not going to let my grandson put his hand on the hot stove if I can, to get his lesson, if I can help him learn that lesson, maybe give him something that's a little warmer touch. Oh, does that feel uncomfortable? Well, if this one feels uncomfortable, you definitely don't want to put your hand on the flame. That's okay that we do that. But if he puts his hand on the flame, well, then he puts his hand on the flame. I'm not going to think of him as an idiot or stupid or whatever. I'm going to think of him as adventurous. And we've got to get comfortable with that, because that's how we're going to begin to enjoy everybody's journey. They were not free from bitter costs and joyless consequences. Yes, don't think that you learned your lessons the hard way. They were gained with bitter costs and hard consequences. So don't impose what you learned the hard way on those today who don't want to learn that way. They want to do it in a different way. This is why we cannot know. We cannot be right about anything. We've got to humble ourselves and let go of this mind that thinks, well, I've been here a lot longer. I know. We don't. We don't. These are beautiful, wonderful times and amazing opportunities to really look at the beautiful journey ahead for us. But to have that experience, we got to let go of the old. We cannot take the old into the new. It's just not, it's not compatible. So to be able to have that as our lived reality, we got to get honest when we're holding on to the old, when we're holding on to the, I know I'm right, my way, and I've got experience. We got to let that shit go and move into the place of being totally, completely blank. Because when we're blank, when we don't know what anything is for, truly get comfortable in the, I don't know, we can move in to connect with our inner child that is filled with wonder. And that one is the one that we want to listen to. What excitement, what adventure, what shenanigans does that one want to take us on? Because those are the ways that we're going to grow, is by listening to our inner heart. Do things that have not been done before. Break the rules. Move beyond what we're told we can and cannot do. We've got to reconnect with that aspect of adventure, because we're creating a whole new world. Like the founding fathers, like those who came here and did not know how to get from one side of the continent to the other. They had to work their way through the jungle. We've got to work our way through the jungle. But it's a fun jungle, because all the ones who are in that jungle are doing it with love, with an awareness that this is co-creating something out of love, and it's going to be for the greater good of all. Such exciting times ahead. Thank you for being here today. I'm so grateful that you were part of this transmission and we experienced this live. And anybody who watches this later, have fun. Have fun knowing that you don't need to do anything how you've done it before. As a matter of fact, how you've done it before is not going to get you to where you want to go. But your heart knows, your inner child knows, and it is absolutely magnificent. I'll see you next week. Take care. Next week at 12 o'clock Eastern time for another episode of Ascension with A Course in Miracles. Bye-bye.